Hey, what's up? Welcome to the live. Yep. All right. So I guess I'm live now. Welcome to the third, I want to say third live stream on this channel. It's going to be a Q&A. Uh, so what's your questions? Tell me your questions and I will do my best to answer them. So yeah, before we began, what happened was I was recently copyright strike by YouTube. They took down that video of Hatun Crash and has taken down my video, and YouTube has taken down my video. Oh, my connection is unstable. Okay, I think we're back. Okay, so basically, getting back to what I was saying, YouTube took down that video of Hatun Crash because it was copyright strike by somebody named Palestinian 717. You would think a Palestinian would be for free speech, but apparently Palestinians can't even defend their land, and now they're bitching about copyright material. What a bunch of nonsense. Anyways, my channel is now under uh my channel is now being threatened to be disabled by YouTube because of that video. So this shameless YouTuber has now flagged my channel or I've done a copyright strike on my channel. For those of you who don't know, you get three copyright strikes. You get three copyright strikes, and if you pass the third copyright strike, then your channel gets disabled. So now my channel is in danger of being disabled or canceled. So this is kind of a big issue here. So I don't know how long my channel is going to last. Who knows? Somebody might come on my channel and do another copyright strike. I don't know, because there's a lot of dangerous people out there on YouTube who want to shut me down. So, well, not just me, but any Islamic channel, they want to shut it down. So now my channel is in danger. So that's why, uh, so I just wanted to give that information out there. So this shameless YouTuber, Palestinian 717, has been criticizing me for bringing up that video. Well, once you put that video on YouTube, it's free speech. I mean, you can use that video under the fair use paradigm or the Fair Use Act, but apparently this person doesn't get it. So and just look at the hypocrisy here, right? Look at the nonsense here. So that's why that video was taken down. So apparently, instead of that Palestinian YouTuber jumping up and down saying "Free Palestine," they should be understanding what the word free speech means. I mean, whatever, man. This shows the nonsense of the this shows the nonsense of the this just shows the nonsense of YouTube, right? Look at what YouTube is becoming. YouTube is now censoring free speech. Now, if you're a YouTuber, you can't even use, public content anymore. You can't even comment on public content anymore. YouTube is now protecting minorities like women, like children, etc., because YouTube is now controlled by a bunch of liberal retards, and these liberal retards are just controlling everything. People are becoming more sensitive, right? People don't want to see Hatun Crash being arrested. Why? Because she's a woman, and woman doing bad things. Oh, nope, you can't expose that. You can't talk about that. And then it just shows, like, the sad reality of YouTube. YouTube is becoming a liberal hellhole where you can't comment or talk about things like religion, like, people minorities behaving badly, etc., etc. You can't even talk about the things that your channel's about, whether it's religion, whether it's about criticizing the critics of Islam, or like whatever. You can't even talk about that stuff anymore because the liberal fascists who run YouTube will take you down. This is further proof that YouTube is not controlled by Muslims. YouTube is not controlled by Christians. YouTube is not controlled by Jews. YouTube doesn't give a shit about any of those religions. YouTube just cares about one thing, making that money, and they'll do anything to protect their financial interests. That means, putting my channel under scrutiny, or under risk of being disabled, because the hell with free speech, the hell with telling the truth. Now it's all about pleasing liberal their liberal financial benefactors. So this is the way YouTube is going. This is the way the world is going. So this is just a sad reality. I'm going to try to fight it out I'm going to try to fight this copyright strike with YouTube and Palestinian 717, because they're a hypocrite for flagging my video and taking down my video, which was, I didn't do anything wrong. They're just trying to protect Hatun Trash because, hey, she's a woman, and God forbid you expose women's bad behavior, because YouTube is controlled by a bunch of simps. Anyways, what's your questions? I don't see anybody in the live chat. Nobody has any questions? I mean, there's a Q&A, what do you call it? There's a Q&A live stream. So, so if you have a question, just shoot it out. If nobody has any questions, I might just end this thing early. So, all right, I'll give it a few. I mean, if anybody's in the live chat, just ask whatever questions you have. I'll do my best to answer it. But it seems like nobody's on live chat. Anybody who just joined in, I was just talking about how YouTube took down my video about Hatun Trash being arrested. So, so now my channel is under danger of being disabled. Murat, we got our first question. Murat said, is it true that the person who told Al-Tabari about the satanic verses said it was unauthentic? Oh, that's a good question. So we got our first question. It's about the satanic verses. So basically, anybody who doesn't know about the satanic verses is this. The Prophet Muhammad spoke the satanic verses because Satan put it in his lips to praise the Arab goddesses, or the Meccan goddesses, Alat and Al-Azza. So basically, these were the pagan goddesses, and the Prophet Muhammad was tricked by Satan to praise them. And then, all the early Muslims did sajda. Sajda means like prostration, the Islamic prayer prostration. And then Angel Gabriel later on came to him and said, no, those verses you recited were not from God. You were tricked by Satan. Here's the verses from God. So this is found in the Quran, chapter 53. Hang on, Mahmoud Bas, and I'll get to your question in a second. So basically, right now we're talking about the satanic verses. So basically, the whole story is Prophet Muhammad got tricked. The short version of the story is that the Prophet Muhammad got tricked by Satan, and later Angel Gabriel corrected him, saying that no, those verses you cited on the Quran chapter 53 were from Satan, and here's the correct verses from God. So basically, the question is it true that the person who told Al-Tabari about the satanic verses said it was unauthentic? Well, I have Al-Tabari's. I have the book you're referencing. I have the footnotes. It talks about how Ibn Hisham seems to have omitted this section, although Alfred. It talks about how Ibn Hisham seems to have omitted this section, although Alfred Guillaume has not noticed the fact. So basically, it seems like, yeah. So it seems, well, according to the Isnad, it's like Ibn Hisham took this story out. So it seems like, the early Muslim scholars not just the later Muslim scholars, but the early Muslim scholars, such as Ibn Hisham, Ibn Ishaq, who was writing before Al-Tabari, they is false, that the satanic verses story is false, but they wrote it down anyways. Now, why they recorded it, I don't know. The good thing about people like Ibn Ishaq and Al-Tabari was they put the Prophet Muhammad's in chronological order. If you read Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, Tirmidhi, etc., the Prophet Muhammad's life, you can't build a chronological order of the Prophet Muhammad's life just reading the Hadith, reading Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. You can't do it. So what people like Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham and Al-Tabari did was they put the Prophet Muhammad's life in chronological order. Okay, now we're getting more questions. Okay, that's good. Hang on, everybody. I'll get to your question. Just one question at a time. Right now, we're talking about the satanic version. So just hold on. I'll get to everybody, inshallah. So basically, people like Ibn Hisham, Ibn Ishaq, Al-Tabari, they put the Prophet Muhammad's life in chronological order. But not everything they put in their history books is authentic. I talked about this briefly in my debate or discussions with David Wood and Sam Shamoon. Didn't seem to get this right. Even though he's been refuted at this point, but the whole point is that the satanic verses story is false because even Ibn Ishaq said that it's false. Basically, even the early Muslim scholars said it is false. So the story is not authentic. Even if the satanic verses story is authentic, even if that's the case, it still proves the Prophet Muhammad is a true prophet. You know why? Because Angel Gabriel came and corrected him. Now, if Prophet Muhammad was a false prophet, why did God send Angel Gabriel to correct the whole situation? So this story actually proves that Muhammad is a real prophet or a prophet from God, because God, even if that story is true, it shows that God actually corrected the Prophet Muhammad from being further tricked by Satan. So even if that story is authentic, it still proves the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad. Basically, I have the history of Al-Tabari Volume 1 right here. And if you read the history of Al-Tabari Volume 1, page 170 to 171, he talks about how his books are filled with weak, inauthentic narrations. So not everything in the history of Al-Tabari is going to be authentic. There's going to be some inauthentic works in there. The good thing about the history of Al-Tabari is you get the life of the Prophet Muhammad in chronological order. You get what happened to him in chronological order when he was in Makkah and when he was in Medina. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, so all right. So Mahmoud Boston 3 asks, why don't you join any other Islamic channels, even if it's in Arabic? Well, Mahmoud Boston, we talked about this on your Facebook. So whatever, I'll just repeat my answer. The reason why is because if I join those Islamic channels, they're not going to like what I say. They're not going to like my style, right? Because I'm refuting people like David Wood, like Robert Spencer, like Sam Shamoon. I'm making fun of people like James White. They're not going to like that, right? They're going to try to be as, how do I say this? They're going to try to be as liberal, not liberal, but they're going to be as corporate or PG-13 as possible, if that makes sense. In other words, they're not going to like what I say they're not going to like the way I do apologetics. So it's basically better if I just be an independent, right? If those people want me on their channel, sure, I'll guest star, I'll do interviews with them. But they're not going to like my channel, or they're not going to like my content, because like 90% of my content is refuting people like David Wood, etc. And they don't want those people on their channel. So I'm on my own here. All right. So have you read the book? What book? Yeah, I have the history of October. Have you read the book? What book? Yeah, I have the history of October. The book. Just curious, Sam Zahidi says, if Al-Tabari has unauthentic narrations, then why did he quote them in the first place, especially narrations that could be seen as blasphemous? Well, he was just writing anything he heard from anybody, right? Al-Tabari was basically Tabari was basically writing anything he heard from anybody. He wasn't doing any kind of anybody. He wasn't doing any kind of fact checking here. So anything, like, he would go to like some cities, modern day Iran or modern day Iraq or Egypt or whatever, and then well, I don't think he traveled as far as Egypt, but he would travel locally. I think he was born in Iran, modern day Iran, or something like that. Then he would go to places like Iran, Iraq, and he would write down anything he heard from anybody. So he wasn't doing any kind of fact checking here. It would be like a reporter just going around just interviewing anybody about like what, right. So not everybody's going to be honest, and not everyone's going to be honest today, right? People are going to lie for their own self-serving purposes or whatever. Same thing back then. People weren't always honest about theology, about the Prophet Muhammad, about the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, about the wives of the Prophet. Not everybody back then was reliable. People would make up these stories for a reason, right? So people would make up stories about um, the Prophet Muhammad being influenced by Satan, or the Prophet Muhammad doing this and that. They would make up these stories for their own, for sectarian reasons or theological reasons, or like whatever reason. So not everybody was honest back then. That's why the Muslims have the Isnad system. The Isnad system was started by Abu Bakr and Umar and Khattab during the time of the Prophet Muhammad to weed out authentic stories and or authentic saying stories of not only the Prophet Muhammad but the early Muslims, to weed out these stories to see which stories were true and which stories were false. So Al-Tabari didn't do the proper method. Al-Tabari didn't do the proper. He didn't have the proper ways of verifying a report or not. He would just write down anything he heard from anybody. So that's basically the issue here, brother. You are like Zakir Naik. No, I don't take that as a compliment. I'm not like Zakir Naik. You know, uh, I have hope. Okay, so anybody else have any kind of other questions? Second, uh, everyday racism says, is it true he talked to angels and devils? If you're talking to the Prophet Muhammad, uh, I don't know. Yeah, well, he talked to Angel Gabriel. According to the Muslim belief, God is up here, and then God sends Angel Gabriel to humanity, or God sent Angel Gabriel to Prophet Muhammad, and Prophet Muhammad would recite the Quranic revelations to humanity, or Gabriel said to him came from Allah in heaven. As for devils, the Prophet Muhammad did see jinns, or which would be demons, in the early days of Mecca. So in the world where God exists, in the world where the supernatural exists, these things are certainly possible. Um, He says, brother, my sister married a Shia. Are they Muslims? Well, this is kind of controversial. This is kind of a controversial issue. Shias do profess La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah means there's no God but Allah, Muhammad is his prophet. So if you say that, you're within the fold of Islam. Now, they say things that take them out of the fold of Islam. They mock Abu Bakr, Umar, and Khattab, or they disrespect them, and you can't disrespect them because the Prophet Muhammad said, "After me, follow Abu Bakr and Umar." He didn't just say follow Ali, and anybody who doesn't follow Ali is damned or whatever. He didn't say that. He said follow all my companions, which means Abu Bakr, Ali, Umar ibn Khattab, Uthman, etc., etc. So basically, the Shia is saying no, those people should have been followed. Ali should have been the next president. But all right, hang on one second. It says, okay, so I think am I back? Yeah, I think I'm back. All right, so basically, why I don't consider Shias Muslims, I cite a bunch of facts. I cite a bunch of Muslim scholars and facts, et cetera, in hadith to back this up. I just recommend searching my video, why Shias are not real Muslims, and I talk about that. But you should treat them as your Muslim brother. brothers or sisters, even though they are like kind of outside the fold of Islam. If that makes sense, you know. Sai Luke says, being that you hold the swoon theory, which many Muslims are now turning to, what is the best evidence you would use to convince other Muslims that your view offers better explanation? You asked this question. It says my connection. I don't know why my connect. Okay, so I think I'm back. Before, like I told you before, the swoon theory is the best explanation because the historical evidence Jesus was put on the cross. Right? There's no way around this. There's absolutely no evidence that Jesus was crucified. This comes from the Gnostic Gospels. Or the Gnostic theology of Basilidians, etc. So basically, I think that's really well. Thank you. So that's the best explanation that according to the first century. No, so that's the best explanation that according to the first century document, Jesus is alive through the whole process. The connection restart. The best evidence we have is that Jesus was put on the cross, but that doesn't mean he dies on the whole thing. To recommend you going to the book, The Empty Tomb. There's on the book about a 3 days, 3 nights paradigm. So this is further indication that Jesus might have survived the crucifixion. That's certainly possible. No Christian can disprove that. So I would just tell these Muslims, go to the first century documents, which is the New Testament documents, and see that all the evidence shows that Jesus was put on the cross, but that doesn't necessarily mean he died on the cross. Yeah, well, Sai was on my live streams. That's true. Mahmoud Boston. Let's see here. Murad says, "What is your opinion on the age of Aisha? Do you think she was 6 or 9, or was she 19? I personally think she was 19. Um, well, the issue really arises according to Sahih Bukhari. The Prophet Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 years old, and he consummated the marriage. It doesn't say that a girl has to be married. Nowhere in the Bible, minimum age, according to all three religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, the right age for marriage is when she's mentally and fit for marriage, right? Is back then, back then it was very normal for girls to be married at that age. They notice how woman didn't consummate the marriage until she was at the age of 9. I mean, that shows that the Prophet Muhammad waited until Aisha was physically and mentally fit for marriage. In today's society, it would be wrong to marry a 9-year-old because we know they're mentally and physically not fit for marriage. But the Prophet Muhammad mentally and physically not fit for marriage. But the Prophet Muhammad, marriage. There's a hadith where Aisha said, when a girl reaches the age of 9, she is a woman. So basically, but today in today's society, we know girls mature later on. They mature when they're 18 or 21, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, that's just the way society was back then. It was very common for men to marry girls at that age, at that time. There was no criticism against the Prophet Muhammad for doing something like that. Anybody who has a problem with this doesn't know how human civilization. Book of Numbers, chapter 31. Numbers, chapter 31. Moses says the Old Testament was promoting, pedophilia and raping little girls, etc. So the Old Testament is worse to young girls than Islam is. But any Muslim who's indulging in child marriages isn't following the Prophet Muhammad's example, because the Prophet Muhammad example was marrying a young woman who was mentally and physically fit for marriage at the they mature physically fit for marriage at the they mature when they're 18, 21, 22. So what else did Murad say? Yeah, that's true, Murad. It's not possible for someone to die on a cross in 6 hours. Jesus was only on the cross for a few hours. So if someone's going to die on the cross, it would take the. We also know that Jesus had a. We also know that uh, Jesus had a Jesus had a connection to a God. So um, we know Jesus had a connection to a God. So um, we know that.